Okay, recently Bleacher Report came out with an article, and basically what they did was they took all 32 teams, they evaluated their draft, and they said who was the biggest steal of each for each team on draft day. Everybody reaches for picks. Some people, it's amazing that pick fell to them, and luckily the Cleveland Browns had I don't think they really had much of a reach. Zach Zinter maybe, but that's only because of the fact that he was hurt. It's not because it was a reach to take him in the 80s. This guy was fantastic. That's not even who this video is about, but I just wanted to talk about Zach Zinter for a second. I mean, this is a All-American guard. So anyways, it said basically it was simple. Bleacher Report came out with a big board before the draft ever happened, and then it's like, all right, where were they ranked on the Bleacher Report big board overall versus where were they drafted? And you had the ability as Cleveland Browns to take a wide receiver with the 156th pick in the fifth round that had Bleacher Report had ranked 90th overall. Now, he's been all over the place depending on what board you look at. I tend to like him closer to that 90. I think he's a top 100 player for sure. And in a loaded wide receiver class, I think he was kind of overlooked. We're going to talk about why I think he was overlooked in a minute. Before we get into this video, if you are new to this channel, we cover a lot of Browns. We actually cover a lot of Texans on this channel too. But we love teams that the NFL media tends to ignore. We're Lions fans. You can see it. We understand what the Cleveland Browns are doing. We have two very similar franchises over history. We get you. So we thought it would be a lot of fun to start a channel talking about the Browns. So Bleacher Report, it says right here, Jamari Thrash, wide receiver, Louisville. They ranked him 90th overall. He impressed for 4 years at Georgia State before leading a breakout Louisville squad in receiving yards last year. Cleveland added him at 156. So here's a guy who is fantastic against worse competition. And then he comes in and he continues to match that production. Now, why was he not more known is the better question. I think he had two things that kind of went against him. Three things. One, he was a transfer. And sometimes it's like people didn't even know he existed before last year, if I'm being completely honest. Then number two, he played at Louisville. Louisville's not a powerhouse school. They had a great year last year. Jeff Brom, fantastic coach, does a really good job with air attack. Purdue absolutely fell apart without him as their coach, and Louisville thrived. That allowed Thrash to get some good coaching. It allowed him to become a much better wide receiver than I think he was going into it against Louisville. But I think people just assume he's not a great athlete. Here's the deal. He actually is a pretty good athlete. I'm not saying remarkable, but I have a crazy comparison for you to Jamari Thrash that I think you will be absolutely blown away by. And it's very similar to someone that's already on your team. So let's get to know this guy just a little bit. All right, let's get to know him a little bit. Last year, he played, like I said, at Grambling State. This year, he is a guy that just flat out was pretty good. Like, he did good. He's not a big contested catch guy or a drop guy. But here's the thing. When I watch him catch, a lot of times when I see players who have a lot of drops, things like that, you look for how they catch the ball. Do they catch it with their hands? Do they catch it with their chest, their body? What does that look like? He's a hands catcher. I don't understand the drop rate. I think some of it was probably adapting to a different speed of game. I think it probably was, but he absolutely had flashes, and he was in the top quarter of wide receivers in yards per route run. He was in the top quarter of all receivers in his receiving grade. He was great against man coverage. He was good, even better against zone, so he could find it. He played on the outside. He played on the inside, at the slot. Like, he was a good player for them. So here's the interesting thing. What kind of an athlete is he? He's a pretty good athlete. He's 4.46. He's a 4.4 guy. All right. The 20-yard and 10-yard split were fine. All right. And the 40 is good. His size isn't great. He came in, like, he's listed at 6'1", but he measured at 5'11 and a half. He's 6 foot, right? And he weighs 188 pounds. And that's just what we know from him. But when you look at it, is that a good enough athlete to be a successful NFL wide receiver? Well, you better hope so, because here I'm going to show you another person, and it is a guy who almost has an identical relative athletic score. and that is Jerry Jeudy, who you just traded for. All right, Jerry Jeudy was slightly taller, so that helped him. Same weight, same speed, all right, pretty much same explosion. The whole thing with Jerry Jeudy coming out of college was that he's just a route technician. Well, here's what I saw when I watched Thrash tapes. His tape, he's just always open. Like, he finds ways to get open. He's more smooth than anything else, I would say. But honest to goodness, like, he's a good player. When I think about pros and what he's good at, I would say he runs his routes with nuance. He has the ability to get open. He understands leverage and how to maneuver defensive backs or manipulate them into positions that he wants them to be. I would also say that he's an adequate athlete. I think he's a good all-around athlete, if I can be completely honest. He absolutely has the ability and a similar athletic profile to even like an Amari Cooper, a lighter Amari Cooper. Obviously, you just saw right there, he's the same athletic profile to Jerry Jeudy. He has good long speed. I saw him win routes short. I saw him win routes long. He has good agility and acceleration. And honestly, I think he's pretty strong at the catch point. He's catching it out here in front of his body. That's where I saw him catching the ball. A lot of catches over the shoulder out here. He's not relying on this or, the inside of his arms to make catches. He's doing it all with his hands. With that being said, he had a really high drop rate. Over the past 3 seasons, he dropped 16 passes, 8 of those last year. Some of it could be getting into a new system, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Also, I would say his speed is more smooth rather than explosive. But again, if you know how to manipulate defensive backs, it doesn't really matter. So, with that being said, as we look at the wide receiver room here for the Cleveland Browns, who's he coming for? Who's he gunning for? And to me, I think he's immediately better than Cedric Tillman. Okay, I like what Tillman has. But this fits more in the mold of what I think Deshaun Watson likes to throw to, the guys who can get open. I think that he immediately is a better athletic profile than David Bell. And I think he competes with David Bell for the number 4 receiver. And I think, honestly, this is right away looking at you, Elijah Moore. Looking at you, man. He has a chance to become the 3rd wide receiver on this team. And if he ends up being a good player, like, this could end up being a really, really good draft pick, like a great steal for this team. I think this could end up being a phenomenal steal for this team. Also, can I just give a real quick another steal that I thought the Browns got as we end this? Nathaniel Watson, just a productive off-ball linebacker. He's one of those guys that he's not a star. I understand that. But at the same time, when you surround him with good players, all right, and you can play him alongside Owusu Koramoah. Why can't I? What was the? So anyways, like, if you put him next to him behind that defensive line with the secondary that's had, he can be a tackling machine for this team. So I thought that was a really good pickup too. All right, wanted to let you know. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.